Welcome to the Tuesday, August 22nd, 2023 regular closed session meeting of the EBMUD Board of Directors. In accordance with Government Code Section 54953 et sec, Director John Coleman notified the Board President, the General Manager, and the Secretary of the District via email of the need to participate in today's closed session meeting from a remote location for just cause. In addition to Government Code Section 54953 et sec, Director Coleman will provide a general description of the circumstances relating to the need to appear remotely in today's closed session meeting. Director Coleman.
Do you want me to do it now, President Katz?
Yes, you may say the just cause for today's meeting.
Yeah, I had my left knee replaced almost a week ago. Can't drive and can't walk too great, and so I'm calling in from home.
We wish you a speedy recovery. I will call for a motion and second to approve Director Coleman's request to appear remotely.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Vice President McIntosh, seconded by Director Patterson. All those in favor, roll call.
Director Coleman,
Yes.
Director Lenny,
Yes.
Director McIntosh,
Yes.
Director Patterson,
Yes.
President Katz.
Yes.
Director Chan is not in, and Director Young is absent and excused.
Director Coleman, in accordance with Government Code Section 54953 F2C, you will need to keep your audio open and camera on at all times while appearing remotely. Additionally, in accordance with Government Code Section 54953 F2B, you will need to disclose whether any individual over the age of 18 is present in the room with you at any time during the remote meeting and describe the general nature of your relationship with that individual, if any. Director Coleman,
I'll do that. Nobody is here with me. If you hear me scream, yell, I'll try not to swear. It's because my leg slipped off the chair.
we understand. We also have a mute button. All right, Director Coleman should also advise the board if there is anyone in the room over 18, and so the nature of the relationship, if I didn't already say that.
You did.
All right, and we move to our regular roll call. Madam Secretary.
I'm unmuting the mics. Okay. Director Chan, not in the room yet. Director Coleman,
Present.
Director Lenny,
Here?
Director McIntosh,
Here.
Director Patterson,
Here.
President Katz.
Here. We move to public comment. If members of the public are online and wish to make public comment, please use the raise your hand feature in Zoom. Comments on non-agenda items will be heard at the beginning of the meeting. Comments on agenda items will also be heard when the item is up for consideration at this time. Madam Secretary, are there any hands for public comment online?
No hands at the moment online.
Okay, I have one speaker card, Justin Young.
Your 3 minutes start now, Justin.
Thank you. $3 billion in debt in the next 5 years. What is the reason? The increase of capital improvement projects at water treatment plants. Good morning, Board of Directors, General Manager Chan, and fellow ratepayers. My name is Justin Young, and I've been working at EBMUD for 20 years in the design division and designing and supporting construction at water treatment plants. The last 5 years, the district has been going down a questionable path. The concern is district is not valuing in-house knowledge. EBMUD has prided themselves in being above other water agencies, but we're slowly turning into them. Who should have more knowledge than the district on our own water treatment plants? By the actions of capital improvement projects we're approving, the district is saying consultants. Did you know we are currently constructing our largest project since Folsom South Canal at Orinda Water Treatment Plant? The Orinda Water Treatment Plant project has been fully designed by consultants. Not a single drawing designed by the design division. It was the opposite case for the Folsom South Canal project. Did you also know on another current capital improvement project, every single chemical feed systems at all of our treatment plants are currently being designed by consultants for millions of dollars? Chemical feed systems are one of the most basic processes of our water treatment plants. The district is paying millions more on these projects to these same consultants to support during construction on separate contracts. Why is this an issue? One, designs aren't to district standards. The contractors aren't creating detailed designs, which result in an increased amount of change orders, which leads to increased costs during construction. Two, the cost to operations and maintenance at the district increases. District staff has to assist to design during constructions to make work what we pay the design consultants to do. District also needs separate expensive contract to support these new systems. No one at district understands how these systems operate due to the lack of knowledge. Do you think consultants understands our customers better than our own company? And when I say customers, I don't mean fellow ratepayers, but our water treatment plant operators and maintenance staff. What are the district's metrics for success? It shouldn't be KPI, which focuses on management success. Let's focus on district success with cost. I have an idea to save the district millions of dollars. We celebrate completion of projects which deserve celebration for all the hard work, but we can do a better job learning from our past projects. Let's find out how much the last completed design consultant and engineering support during construction contract project cost at a water treatment plant. Let's have an unbiased third party audit the ozone replacement project at Sobrante and USL water treatment plant. What were the estimates of this project? What did it actually cost district to plan, design, construct, and support? The board of directors are looking for training. This is a great opportunity to learn how the district is spending money on capital improvement projects at water treatment plants. At $3 billion in debt in the next 5 years, it's the least we can do to prevent more rate increases in the coming years. Thanks for the floor. Hi.
I'm sorry to have come in just a little bit late, but I do this every once in a while. Can you please email me your remarks?
Definitely.
Thank you.
And the next speaker card I have is from Yvette Rivera.
Thank you. I just have a procedural question before I talk. I was wondering when this survey was going to be presented. Was it presented this morning or is it going to be presented this afternoon?
That's on the agenda for this afternoon under General Manager's Report.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it.
Your 3 minutes start now.
Thank you. May I have a moment
Sure.
for me to just get this document up that I'm going to use for this presentation? Thank you. I spoke at the board meeting this morning, and I'm really glad that you're here, Director Chan, and that you're here, Director Coleman, and that everyone is present. I guess Marguerite Young isn't. I spoke this morning, and I reminded everybody that there's interest accruing on $8 million for the Saji Pierce and Ariel Bland lawsuit. I read from a portion of the closing argument that Bernard Vincent wrote, and I'm going to read a few lines from that before in fact, you know what? I might start reading from it now, because I'll let it speak for itself. It's in regards to Craig Spencer. So Mr. Spencer, the smartest person in the room, decided to feed this information to the investigator. And let me go back one line to tell you what the information is. So he, being the most sophisticated person in the room, goes the alternative route. He knows that inside the investigation process, it's confidential. And so if he puts these unsubstantiated things and he tells the investigator, it has consequences. So Mr. Spencer, the smartest person in the room, decided to feed this information to the investigator. So he told the investigator these false statements, these statements that would punish Ms. Pierce, that would poison her ability to promote. And so what he did was told it to the investigator, knowing that the investigator would put it in the report and that the report would be transmitted to the board. His discriminatory or retaliatory animus transferred his words, a false statement, to the investigator that gets submitted to the portal, to the board members. You heard the testimony of Director Young. quote, "I received it in my portal and I read it, and all the directors are expected, they are supposed to read it. So I assumed that the other directors read it." She said before that date, she had the utmost respect for Miss Pierce, but after that, suddenly, she decided she wasn't a team player, that she wasn't the right person. And so the, end quote. And so the consequences, and so the consequence is that Mr. Spencer had been able to poison Miss Pierce's ability to promote upstream. I bring this up because I'm supposed to be going through an investigation. I provided all of you documents of an investigator that was picked by DEI or the general manager. And you saw that that investigator was accused of supposedly, allegedly, sexual harassment, defamation, that he cost one city, I guess, in a settlement, over $400,000. I am still not getting an answer about my whistleblower complaints. So I'm going to end this by just telling you the documents that I'm going to send you today. I may not be able to get them to you in hard copy, but I'm going to send them to you today. The first one, and the most important one, is the Rossetti. 4 years later, can public employee whistleblowers be protected? Basically, I read that article in 2016. That's the reason I come to the board. That's the reason why I email you directly. Recently, David Carlson gave me a warning letter. This camouflages a council memo that came from Mr. David Briggs. But he upped the ante. I knew it came from David Briggs because he told me. But on Friday,
Sir,
he
your
wrote
3
me an
minutes have
email.
concluded. Can you
I'm gonna
please
cl-
wrap up your
I'm going to
comments?
finish right now with this.
Okay.
On Friday, he wrote me an email ratifying everything that David Briggs wrote in that warning letter. So I'm going to amend my tort complaint to include everyone that helped him write that email. I'll speak again at the 1 o'clock meeting. I'll leave it at that. Investigations that are investigated by the people that are being accused of violating state and federal laws should be against the law. I think it is.
Thank you, Ms. Rivera.
Thank you. I
We
yield.
will now convene to conference room 8 to disclose closed session agenda items. We are scheduled to return for a regular meeting at 1:15 p.m. Welcome to the Tuesday, August 22nd, 2023 regular business meeting of the EBMUD Board of Directors. In accordance with Government Code Section 54953 et sec, Director John Coleman sent notification to the Board President, the General Manager, and the Secretary of the District via email of the need to participate in today's regular meeting from a remote location for a just cause. In accordance with Government Code Section 54953 et sec, Director Coleman will provide a general description of the circumstances relating to the need to appear remotely in today's regular meeting. Director Coleman.
Thank you, President Katz. The reason I've asked for this exemption is that I had my left knee replaced last Wednesday, and I'm not very mobile, and I'm not driving for sure, and so this is the only way I can participate in the meeting.
Thank you, Director Coleman. I will call for a motion and a second to approve Director Coleman's request to appear remotely.
I move the motion.
Second.
Been moved by Director Chan and seconded by Vice President McIntosh. Roll call.
Director Chan?
Yes.
Director Coleman?
Yes.
Director Lenny?
Yes.
Director McIntosh?
Yes.
Director Patterson?
Yes.
Director Young is absent, excused. President Katz?
Yes. Director Coleman, in accordance with Government Code Section 54953 F2C, you will need to keep your audio open and camera on at all times while appearing remotely. Additionally, in accordance with Government Code Section 54953 F2B, you will need to disclose whether any individual over the age of 18 is present in the room with you at any time during the remote meeting and describe the general nature of your relationship with the individual. Director Coleman should now advise the board if there is anyone in the room over 18, and if so, the nature of the relationship.
Nobody is in the room where I'm doing this, period, whether over 18.
All right, thank you for joining us, and we will now receive, we will receive reports from this morning's Finance Administration Committee under item 12. Director Marguerite Young is absent and excused. Roll call, Madam Secretary.
Director Chan?
Yes.
Director Coleman?
Present.
Director Lenny?
Yes.
Director McIntosh,
Here.
Director Patterson,
Yes.
Director Young, absent and excused, President Katz.
Here, please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes.
There are no announcements from closed session. We move to public comment. If members of the public are online and wish to speak on agenda or non-agenda items, please use the raise your hand feature in Zoom. Comments on non-agenda items will be heard now. Comments on agenda items will be heard when the item is up for consideration. I'll take comments online first. Madam Secretary, are there any public comments
Yes, give me one moment, please.
on matters not on the agenda?
Yes. Lonna Coleman, you should be able to unmute your mic.
Yes, this is on item 10, so I assume I'll be heard at that point.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
No other speakers?
No other
online?
speakers.
Okay, I have a speaker card for Yvette Rivera.
Question? I'd like to speak when that presentation is going to be, the general manager's report.
The customer survey?
Yes, yes.
You want to speak then
Yeah,
as well
also-
as now?
Also, yes.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Everyone should have a document, actually, there are 4 documents in your hands. The first document is the closing argument portion that I read to you this morning from the Pierce Bland case. I read that after I said that interest is accruing on those $8 million for the Pierce Bland civil right lawsuit. I'm going to read these lines from Bernard Alexander in a minute. I just want to tell you what's in the other documents before I proceed. I sent you an email on August 19th explaining to you, to each board member, how the EEO contract for consultants basically is the way it's set up. It's the reason why there's no transparency, why people accused of discrimination are the ones that pick the consultants, as they did for me when they chose Ren Noski, a person that was that had a lawsuit against him when he worked at a city as general counsel for defamation, allegedly sexual harassment or discrimination. It's in the public records that I provided. But this was the best from the consultant list. And I'm still waiting for the public record of all of the lawyers and investigators that were on that list, because Derry Moten's office picked that guy. Also, I've provided you the new law, the new standard for whistleblower retaliation complaints. It really encourages employees to come forward because lawyers will now get paid their fees. And the contract for DEI. I'm going to end by just reading the couple of lines from the closing argument. And he's referring to Craig Spencer. So he, being the most sophisticated person in the room, goes the alternative route. He knows that inside the investigation process, it's confidential. And so if he puts these unsubstantiated things and he tells the investigator, it has consequences. If you turn it over, this is the rest. So Mr. Spencer, the smartest person in the room, decided to feed this information to the investigator. So he told the investigator these false statements, these statements that would punish Miss Pierce, that would poison her ability to promote. And so what he did was he told it to the investigator, knowing that the investigator would put it in the report, and then that report would be transmitted to the board. His discriminatory or retaliatory animus transferred through his words a false statement to the investigator that gets submitted to that portal to the board members. You heard the testimony of Ms. Young, a director, as read, quote, "I received it in my portal and I read it, and all the directors are expected, they are supposed to read it. So I assume the other directors read it. She said before that date she had the utmost respect for Ms. Pierce, but after that, suddenly she decided that she wasn't a team player, that she wasn't the right person. And so the consequence is that Mr. Spencer had been able to poison Ms. Pierce's ability to promote upstream. I'm going through investigations and I'm being retaliated by Tony Montano, David Carlson, Ed Betancourt, and David Briggs. I hope that this board really looks at what's happening and the process. I provided the quote from Priscilla Winslow this morning. Can public employee whistleblowers be protected? And in that article, she says, indeed, many unions give exactly that advice to members as a way of insulating their reports from retaliatory consequences. That's all I've been doing for 10 years. Please protect me. Thank you, I yield.
Thank you, Ms. Rivera.
We have Director Coleman has his hand up.
Thank you. Director Coleman?
Thank you. Since I'm not there, can I be assured that what Ms. Rivera left at each desk, I assume at my spot too, that it be mailed to me?
Yes,
Thank you, Madam
We'll mail that.
Secretary.
Thank you very much.
Okay. We move to the consent calendar, items 1 through 9. Are there any comments from the public on the consent calendar? I don't see any. Do board members wish to pull an item from consent? Director Coleman first and then Director Chan.
Item 4, please.
Director Chan?
Number 4, number 8 and 9, and the minutes.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve consent calendar items 2, 3, 5, 6, and 7?
I'll move.
second.
Moved by Director Linney and seconded by Vice President McIntosh. All those in favor, roll call.
Director Chan,
Yes.
Director Coleman,
Yes.
Director Linney,
Yes.
Director McIntosh. Yes. Director Patterson.
Yes.
Director Young is absent, excused. President Katz.
Yes. Item number 4. Let's start with just a brief statement from the general manager, and then I'll call on Director Coleman and Director Chan to identify their concerns, and we'll have a board discussion.
So item 4 is with Pacific States Environmental Contractors. This contract, as the board is aware, we both went to the full board as well as the planning committee to discuss how we're going to deal with our trench soils. We are investigating numerous options that don't include the quarry site. This contract will help us support our current operations as well as provide funding for one of the pilots, which is the direct haul pilot.
Director Coleman?
Yeah, thank you. My question really has to do with, I raised it previously and really haven't had much follow-up on it since. On page 20, I guess it is, it talks about what they're going to do. And it talks about local first paragraph, last sentence. PCS was selected based on cost, experience with local conditions and reuse sites and proven competencies. Reuse sites. So what has happened with beneficial reuse sites along the bay where the trench spoils are clean enough to be put in? And I know there's initial discussion with BCDC and I think San Francisco Estuary Institute, but where do we stand on that? And have they identified sites and have they identified what their need is? Because I know their need is great, probably a lot more than 50,000 cubic feet, but a lot of that wouldn't be acceptable, I know that.
So there's a number of sites that we're looking into, and including the information, Director Coleman, that you provided as far as beneficial reuse. The other thing that this contract will allow, this is also the soil broker for us, to look at how we can operate do our operations while delivering to various sites. So, there's a lot of coordination with different sites to bring the soil, both the timing and logistics, and this contract will help us with that as well. And so, we can certainly provide to you all the different beneficial reuse sites that we are looking into right now.
That would be fantastic, thank you. And if you could also identify the particular agency that would be the recipient or approval for receiving those trench spoils.
Director Chan?
Okay. I do have some follow-up questions on what Director Coleman brought up, but I think first I would like to ask about the PUC permit application in Castro Valley. When was that? When did you apply for that?
Dave, you want to talk about this is the conditional use permit, the CUP, yes.
Good afternoon. We're in dialogue with the county right now to submit the permit and complete the appropriate CEQA to get that going. So all that is in process right now. We're talking to the county on a weekly basis.
When did that start?
A month ago.
Okay, because I was supposed to be informed if there was going to be more activity around Castro Valley and the infill site. So who have you been talking to?
It's the planning person. Sorry, Casey.
I apologize. I know I asked you a question and I interrupted, but has the application been filled out?
I think, Casey, have we filled out the application for the permit yet? You can come up. Good afternoon. So we are working collaboratively with the county staff. And so we have prepared a project description, which is needed for CEQA. It accompanies the conditional use permit application. So we have not submitted a conditional use permit application to the county yet because we want to work, we want to show the county our project description for Miller Road and come to an agreement on that before we submit a conditional.
Anybody have a problem from staff for keeping me informed about what's going on? Anybody have a problem with that? Because this is a surprise, and I thought we had agreed that, not you, Mr. LeBlanc, but that I would be kept in the loop on all of this.
So as far as what you would like to see, I mean, we did share with you, I forget, probably last month that we were going to be working with the county, and the process we had shared with you that we wouldn't be doing any sort of off-haul from the county or from the Miller Road site until next year. But if there's specific information or information you'd like to see, I can certainly provide that information. There's no problem of keeping in the loop. I just need to know what information you'd like to hear about.
Okay, I was told that I would be CC'd on some emails. And actually, my impression from the last meeting that we had was that there could be, that we would apply for a CUP, but it wouldn't be until next year. So I guess I'm a little bit surprised by the timing, but that's fine. I understand. Thank you. Totally understand. Thank you. Thank you. I don't, so that was one question. Oh, wait, Mr. LeBlanc, I have you at the front of the room. So I know that we had met with the community in June and that you said that you were actually working on some alternative sites for Phil. So I'm just kind of wondering, what are you seeing? What sites are you excited about? What sites do you think we can use at this point? Just the update.
Yeah, so the district participates in a soil brokerage site called Sedimatch. And so we've advertised all the soil that we have available. And on that website, we're able to see other locations that need soil. And so we're following, I'd say, a half dozen projects right now. So to give some examples, the Eden Landing Wetlands Restoration Project is one that's in South Hayward that we'd like to participate in. So we're evaluating the district's typical soil characteristics with the receiving sites criteria to see if there's a good match. Yesterday, we had a meeting with a company who has 4 sites in the Bay Area where they need soil. And so we're first trying to find out, when's the timing of each of the sites, how much soil do they need, and then does the district soil typically meet the receiving sites characteristics. So the contract before you today, board item 4, is Pacific States has brought the Dumbarton Quarry to the district. So the Dumbarton Quarry has 3 million cubic yards of capacity that would be available for projects like ours to bring soil directly to Dumbarton Quarry from our job sites.
I see. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay, any further questions or discussion? Is there a motion?
I'll move the item. This is John Coleman.
Moved by Director Coleman, seconded by Director Patterson. All those in favor, roll call.
Aye.
I should really just stop saying that, all those in favor when it's a roll call meeting,
It's
so.
kind of a
I'll just
false
say roll.
start there.
I know, my apologies. Roll call.
Yes.
Director Coleman,
Yes.
Director Lenny,
Yes.
Director McIntosh,
Yes.
Director Patterson,
Yes.
President Katz.
Yes. And in my haste, I just went over the minutes and skipped that to go to item 4. So let's go back to item number 1, the regular meeting minutes. Director Chan.
That's me again, okay. So, I did see the minutes and I try, when I make comments, from here, the dais, I really kind of try to be explicit. And some of the things that I just wanted to add in that I know that I said from the dais was the, 279 million that was transferred between projects for year 2023 was not reported to the board
What page
of directors.
would we be making a correction to?
This is the minutes in the director comments.
Okay, so I think
So
I
the
see that
director
on
comments
page
are at
page
the
13
end.
to 14 of our packet.
It's at the very end.
Item 18.
Yeah, so it's page 8, page 7 and 8 of the minutes, which is page 13 to 14 of our packet.
Okay.
So there's one, Director Chan, you had one comment reflected about the internal auditor's review of concerns. Is this a correction to that comment, or is this a separate comment that should have been reflected?
No, I'm talking about comments that I made already from this dais in the director comments.
Okay, and so what exactly are you asking for a correction on?
So I'm asking you to add the 279 million
And where would you like the 279 million added?
to my comments that I stated last time.
Where in the comments? Because I can read what
Okay.
you wrote, and you
I-
can tell me where you want to add that information.
Okay, all right, let's do it then.
So the director comments read, Director Chan commented on a letter she received from a constituent regarding the recent rate increase and the district's internal auditor's review of concerns in the letter regarding board authorization for funds that are transferred from project to project. So where would you like the 279 million added?
So I would like, okay, at this point, I guess we have to correct the minutes, because that sounds like the board authorized, but I want to say explicitly, the board did not authorize 279 million transfer of funds between projects.
Okay, so
So, I mean, I'm not used to writing minutes here from the dais, so if we could,
we can fix. we can
Circle
fix some
back.
more. Yeah, we can do that.
but I just want to be very clear that I made those remarks and that they should be reflected in the minutes.
All right, so maybe we shouldn't approve the minutes at this point.
Okay. All right, so why don't we table the minutes at this point? If Madam Secretary is able to access the transcript and can find the detail that might be requested, we could do that, but we understand if that is not possible today.
Okay.
So let's go on to item 8.
I guess that was mine too. I just wanted to clarify whether or not, since I've been here, the process has been that that there's these discussions within the meeting, John, and this is relevant to you in terms of, we didn't meet for the finance committee meeting this morning, and so do we normally just go ahead and approve those items even though they weren't heard by the committee?
So that can be done, but of course, if the full board, because it wasn't, the committee, because there wasn't a quorum this morning, so the committee didn't make a recommendation for both the policies and the monthly investment report. So if the full board would like, we can do that presentation for the full board for both those items. But, you know, in discussion with Chair Patterson, at least for the policies and for both those items, There was nothing remarkable in either, that he felt that this could just remain on consent calendar for the board to consider, but, we can do the presentation here for the full board.
Well, okay, I mean, I feel like the information is kind of technical and the finance committee is used to, reading that sort of information, but you know what? I will go with whatever Director Patterson wants to do. It's fine. What do you want to do?
I think we can present it right now and
Okay.
approve it. Yeah.
Okay?
Director Patterson, do you feel like we need a full presentation, or would you move approval?
Yeah, I move approval.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor? I did it again. Roll call. Roll call.
Director Chan?
Yes.
Director Coleman?
Yes.
Director,
I'm so sorry, but shouldn't we have more discussion about what those items are before we vote on them? Do we need to?
We're in the middle of a roll call, but I'd be happy to address the question in a moment. If we should probably don't know what happens when we're in the middle of a roll call vote.
You can stop a
read
roll
the
call.
information. I mean, I read it.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it.
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
President Katz, can we just state for the record what we're voting on?
Yes, so the motion is to approve item number 8, the June and July 2023 monthly investment transactions reports. Why don't we just strike the roll call without objection? And
Let me just address April. If there's an item on the consent calendar that you would like to have a presentation on, you can ask for that.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that the agenda was really meaty and that there are a lot of things, particularly from the auditor, that, and I apologize, because I'm thinking as we're talking, that I would have liked to have heard more about. And so there's a lot there. I mean, it's only on the consent calendar because it's supposed to go through committee first. But it didn't go through committee.
So the monthly investment transactions reports, having served on the finance committee during most of my years on the board when I haven't been serving as the president, my experience with that item when it's presented is very straightforward, and that there isn't very much information outside the packet unless there's a question specific to it. It's very straightforward. I agree, the audit information is very important, and but that's not the agenda item, and I am aware of what was in the packet for the audit, and I expect that it will probably, I would hope that it receives full consideration from the committee next month, since the meeting wasn't able to occur this morning.
And maybe President Cass, just for clarification, we did bring both those items to the committee this morning. We just didn't have a quorum of the committee. The internal audit report I did pull because per our policy, that one needs to be approved by the committee before we bring it to the board. So that item is going to be brought to a future committee meeting because we didn't have a quorum. But the other two items, the policies and the monthly investment transaction report, was brought to the committee this morning.
So if anybody wants to have the slideshow and the presentation on the reports, that's fine. Just wanted the last call, I think, before.
Okay, I guess I wasn't aware that it was pulled because it is on the agenda as item number 9.
It was not pulled. The internal audit report was pulled because that per policy has to be approved by the committee. But the monthly investment transaction and the edits to the policies, that was presented to the committee this morning.
Well, okay, so can we bring item number 9 back after heard by the committee? Just because the revisions to the district policy, that was a lot. I actually read through it, and I think it was a lot to be put on a consent calendar.
Well, yeah, we can move on to item 9 after we complete the discussion on item 8, which is what we have on the floor right now.
Okay.
So we have a motion on the floor to approve item number 8. Is there any further discussion about that? Okay, roll call.
Director Chan?
Yes.
Director Coleman?
Yes.
Director Lenny?
Yes.
Director McIntosh?
yes,
Director Patterson?
yes,
President Katz?
Yes. For item number 9, I propose that given we have a light agenda today, that we just have I do see Mr. Garden here. I propose that we just hear the presentation that would have been made to the Finance Committee, since that wasn't made in committee. And we have all of the members of the committee present, and then we could consider the item itself.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Garden?
Good afternoon, board members. Hello, good members of the committee. I'll try not to shut down the Zoom call this time. So we've got 6 policies this morning that are being recommended for modification. Excuse me. 4 of the policies have relatively minor modifications for clarity, and 2 have more substantive changes. So I'll just kind of walk through them one at a time. Policy 3.01, annexations. This policy is being modified to clarify the requirements required for annexing territory outside of the district's ultimate service boundary. Policy 3.02, California Environmental Quality Act implementation. This policy just contains a few minor grammatical edits. Policy 3.03, Community Fire Flow Improvement Program, again, minor grammatical edits. Policy 3.04, coordination of district construction and maintenance work with other agencies. This policy is being modified to require coordination with other agencies before proceeding. Policy 3.05, consideration for extension of water service beyond the ultimate service boundary. This policy was modified to include the word service behind water, so that we're clarifying that we're providing water service. And policy 3.08, advisory election for annexation outside of the Contra Costa urban limit line. This policy was simply modified to remove a few references that are no longer relevant.
Director Coleman?
Thank you. Derry, the 3.08, which speaks to in the first paragraph, located outside the urban limit line adopted by Contra Costa County in 2000. Does not Alameda County have an urban limit line? 2, because we have service in both areas, and both areas have sensitive habitat. It looks like we're just going after Contra Costa County, not addressing the whole district as a whole.
If the question is, does Alameda County have a limit line? Yes, I presume, Derek?
I will try to address the question, Director Coleman. So Alameda County does have some type of control in terms of urban growth, and I believe it's called Measure D. So it's very similar to the urban limit line in Contra Costa County, where they do have a measure that restricts outward growth in the urban limit line.
So my question is, if we're looking at only Contra Costa County in 3.08, are we not weakening our legal challenges potentially coming from either in Contra Costa County or in Alameda County, because we're not applying it to Alameda County as well?
I do believe in terms of when we annex properties that is outside the service limit, we do have a very consistent process that we do make sure that each of those property go through the LAFCO process. And only after their approval, then the property is being considered into, for water service, assuming that they also get the USBR approval process done as well. So it's a very complicated process in terms of getting annexation into this service area.
No, I'm well aware of that, and I know why we're talking about 3.08 for Contra Costa County for the proposed development, which the board did not support. It was approved by LAFCO in Contra Costa County. So that sort of goes to the argument we are highlighting and targeting Contra Costa County, not being equal in our representation to the two counties we serve.
If I could just share a thought on that, I do think it's an interesting point that Director Coleman raises, just that we wouldn't want to have policies on paper that appear to treat the two counties differently without a stated reason somewhere in our background materials. So, but as a practical matter, my understanding from knowledge of the Alameda County, both counties' urban limit lines, is that the risk of conflict with our ultimate service boundary is possibly non-existent in Alameda County, and it would be very rare and maybe theoretical, but I haven't done that analysis specifically. So I think that having that review by staff at a later time, that, you know, we've already had this policy 3.08 on the books for many years, but I think what Director Coleman is raising is it makes sense to review, to consider whether we should have an Alameda County policy specific or report to the board that explains why it wouldn't serve any effect. So maybe that, Director Coleman, does that sound like something that we could ask the staff to look into? And then
Well, it would be nice just to get it done in one fell swoop, Andy. I know that in Alameda County, we've had issues in the past. You have the border of San Ramon and Alameda County. You have Castro Valley in Alameda County that come into play as well. We've had urban growth issues in Alameda County, and we may have them in the future. I don't know. But I would think, be better to include both counties in this rather than highlighting or targeting one county.
So as far as policy 3.08, I mean, I guess there's two options right now. We can take a whole relook at this policy to see how Alameda County might fit into a policy that we probably have to change the title a bit too, or we could do as Director Katz suggests is the board move forward. This policy hasn't been updated in quite some time. We can approve this policy, and we can come back with an info memo to explain how Alameda County is dealt with.
Well, if I can say, thank you, Clifford. If I could say, I would prefer that we hold off on 308. Let's get the corrections if necessary, or the memo may say it is not needed for whatever reason, and then bring this back to the board.
Director Chan?
I had a question about advisory elections. I mean, the way that I read the memo is that everyone, if there was an area in dispute, territorial dispute about whether or not it was our area and whether or not we could annex it, that there wouldn't be an election by the people who are currently our ratepayers. Is that correct?
I have to defer election questions to Derek. I don't know.
Well, so territorial disputes are usually decided by LAFCO and not through elections. So,
What are advisory elections?
So policy 3.08 was, I don't know why it was adopted. It predates my time, but it was a policy decision of the board at the time in 2003 when it was adopted. I do not know, and I think this will be part of our research as to why the board decided to adopt a policy calling for elections only in Contra Costa County as opposed to Alameda County. But apparently at the time, there was some consideration in Contra Costa County where the board took this policy approach towards annexations outside the Contra Costa urban limit line.
It just sounds like a very expensive way to resolve this. If you are, as a matter of fact, talking about elections.
And I'm sure Risha could attest to that, yes, elections are expensive. And to my knowledge, we've never actually held one, so.
If I can speak to it, I remember when this was passed, it was because of Doherty Valley and the surrounding properties back then. And yes, it would be very expensive. You know, our ward elections alone can run upwards of $500,000 per ward, depending on how many registered voters there are in each ward.
So the proposal right here is, it's a very small technical change, just to eliminate two cross-references to other policies. The actual policy itself is not being modified. So I think it does make sense to refer Director Coleman's interest to the staff to see, does the inconsistency to an existing, of an existing policy not addressing our other county that we serve, does that raise an issue? Do we have a comparable risk in Alameda County that led the board to adopt this policy for Contra Costa County? I think those are questions that make sense to have staff review on. But we're not being asked to take any major policy action to this policy besides just deleting some cross-references that staff didn't feel like needed to be there anymore.
That's correct.
I still would like information on, would like you to consider advisory elections and whether or not we really need that wording in there, because that's extremely expensive.
It sounds like that's, I think that would require committee discussion and more board discussion.
Well, then, can we refer that to the committee? Yeah.
So it sounds like we've had discussion about those types of issues for later, but I don't think that needs to hold up the proposal, which is just to conform the lack of need for those cross-references. I'm not hearing objection to that specifically. Any other comment about any of the other policies proposed under item 9?
If I just pause for clarity, the two follow-up issues would be advisory elections and Alameda County, exploration of an Alameda County urban limit line consideration.
Or why Alameda County was not included in the policy.
My view is that Alameda County poses a much lower risk of challenges or threats to the district's ability to serve our customers, because our ultimate service boundary largely covers all of unincorporated Alameda County that Measure D restricts. So I could be corrected if there is an area that is protected by Measure D that is not in our ultimate service boundary. I haven't looked very carefully at that comparison ever before, but my understanding is that there's much greater, variance and risk for debate for annexations of our service boundary in Contra Costa County compared to Alameda. But I think a staff review of the maps would be more accurate than my recollection.
So, Andy, if we're going to go ahead and vote on all of these, I will let you know, I want to separate them out because I'll vote no on 308 because I don't think it's wise to bring it back later to make modifications because we didn't get the answers first. That's just so you're aware of that. I don't disagree with it, but I want some answers first.
Is this time sensitive? I mean,
no.
Why can't we just put it over? I don't understand the debate. If it's just one policy we're talking about out of various policies under item 9. And if there's no time sensitivity involved, why not just put it over per their request?
We can do that. We can bring policy 308 back to the committee, and if the board wants to consider the other 5 policies.
I agree with that.
Okay, all right. So is there a motion to approve policies 3.01, 3.02, 3.03, 3.04, 3.05?
That's it.
Yeah, and when I said policies, I mean the revisions to those district policies.
So moved.
I'll second.
Moved by Vice President McIntosh and seconded by Director Linney. Roll call.
Director Chan?
Yes.
Director Coleman?
Yes.
Director Linney?
Yes.
Director McIntosh?
Yes.
Director Patterson?
Yes,
President Katz?
Yes. Okay, I'll move to item number 10.
So I know we have a public comment. I don't know if you,
Approve the other items, don't we?
Hold on.
Never- I
I think we just
apologize.
did.
Yeah, we've now gone through the remaining items on the consent calendar. We will now move to determination and discussion.
This is me-infused discussion on my part.
Yeah, we might go back to the minutes, but.
Or good drugs.
Yeah, we're on 10. The board did announce at the end at the beginning of our last general session that we decided in a closed session to commence an investigation into the claims asserted by Lonna Coleman. And this item is to consider the appointment of 3 board members to serve on an ad hoc committee to coordinate that investigation.
So there is a public comment. Did you want to hear it now?
Yeah, why don't we take public comment from a speaker online? I believe Lonna Coleman had requested to speak then. And Director Coleman, do I see your hand?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, your
Yes.
3 minutes will start now.
Thank you. On page 107, this agenda item references an investigation of my claims regarding your general manager and general counsel. That's inappropriately limited and unacceptable. The investigation needs to include how at least 7 quote-unquote experts at the district could have simultaneously misunderstood that the ordinance required East Bay MUD to follow the CalPERS lead in determining reciprocity. While Derek and Clifford are among these experts who should have known better, the entire situation needs to be investigated for widespread negligence. I've provided the names of all those, including your HR staff and indeed your HR attorney, who did not understand the ordinance as they should have and would have if they'd read it. The investigation needs to include whether relevant evidence was hidden, as it was by Lisa Serrani in November 2021, or destroyed, as I believe occurred. For example, there are ways to search for long deleted emails on East Bay MUD computers. To not look would be continuing to hide evidence. It needs to include review of any quote unquote briefings to the board and whether those were adequate, including the January 23 briefing after 18 pages of information on widespread district errors had been provided to Derek and Clifford in December. I don't want to report just saying something like, oh, Derek was correct to hold a briefing within X days or something like that. I want the truth. If his briefing was inadequate or misleading on the status of the situation. It needs to include the entire attorney-client communications suppressed to date, which no longer serves any purpose. This includes those which resulted in replacing John as president of the board, as that is directly related to mishandling, or i.e. hiding of information internally. The truth about Joe Damas and Jerry Gilbert receiving retirement exceptions to the ordinance need to be uncovered, finally. And there's so much more, most of which is contained in my letters, my speaking points. It's a complicated situation. An investigator, it must include interaction. I hear how, they can come back with something and there's no chance to discuss it. This has to be interactive so those things can be discussed. For example, what if the investor came back with those lame documents that Derek provided to attempt to demonstrate that Joe Damas didn't have retirement benefits at Alameda County Water District, even though they're paying him $98,000 a year, in addition to the $100,000 East Bay MUD is paying. I should have the ability to point out those fallacies of those documents before a report is issued. An investigator may have to be challenged to get to the bottom of some of these. District employees are watching how you handle this, believe me. If any directors voted against this investigation, or even argued against it at your August 8th closed session meeting or any other closed session, they should unquestionably be excluded from the 3-member board committee being created, as what they've done is they've exposed their predisposition against a fair evaluation taking place. If there is no wrongdoing, the district and its employees have absolutely nothing to fear from a thorough, transparent investigation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Coleman. Director Linney.
Yeah, Ms. Coleman, I've listened to your presentations and I've read all your letters, but I have a question for you. In the last meeting, you presented information that showed when he retires, John Coleman should stand to benefit between $50,000 and $90,000 a year for his service at the district if reciprocity could somehow be granted. This is on top of whatever he is entitled to as for his service at the California Conservation Corps. The job of a board member pays approximately $12,000 to $14,000 a year. East Bay MUD contributes a very small amount to fund the pension fund in line with the salary. My question to you is this: do you think it is fair to ratepayers, taxpayers, and to our pension fund that John should benefit to this large extent, $50,000 to $90,000 or more a year, for his public service as an elected official? My question to you is this: do you think it is fair to ratepayers, taxpayers, and to our pension fund that John should benefit to this large extent, $50,000 to $90,000 or more a year, for his public service as an elected official?
Hold on, we have a.
I don't know where you're getting $90,000. The difference between what we were promised by the district and what John's probably eligible for is, by our calculations, $55,000 a year, which is a drop in the bucket to your million dollar pension. Do I think it's fair? I think what is unfair is telling us something, telling me something, telling me what my retirement will be. So I retire, I buy a house to live in, and
That wasn't my question. I know you've presented that before. I asked you a question. The numbers, by the way, came from the chart. It was somewhere around $50,000 for the first year. By the 15th year, it would be $90,000 at 15th year in retirement.
If you're including the $3,000 or the 3%, yeah. No, I do think it's fair, because I want the.
By the way, came from the chart. It was somewhere around $50,000 for the.
Mrs. Coleman, if you wouldn't mind muting your device that is rebroadcasting the board meeting.
That is the way I listen to your meetings. That's how I hear it. That's on my laptop. There's nothing else on. And that, I've told Risha, I get it this way. I didn't follow up with her, but I hear it repeated.
If you wouldn't mind muting your device that is rebroadcasting the board meeting. Yeah, we are interested in facilitating a little bit of dialogue about, we have a few questions to you. That's only possible if we can avoid the background.
Did you hear me that I can't mute it? That I don't have anything else on. I have my laptop.
Facilitating a little bit of dialogue about, we have a few questions to you. That's only possible if we can avoid the background.
Ms. Coleman, do you have you have a laptop and a cell phone?
No, I do not have my cell phone on. No, I do not have a cell phone on. This is, Risha, remember I told you I get all the background noise? I told you a month or so ago.
I don't recall, but okay.
I do not have my cell phone on. It is, no.
This usually happens when there are two devices within the same vicinity.
I understand. Can I go in and show John my cell phone is off?
So are you using your cell phone and your laptop to access the meeting?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
We'll do the best we can just to get some clarifying questions. You know, we're only limited to.
I think she answered my question.
Okay, thank you.
She does think it's fair that he should get this kind of money from public service.
And you know, we'll have an opportunity to reflect on the recommendations or findings of an investigation when that report is presented. This item is to talk about the appointment of a committee to coordinate the investigation. We'll have an opportunity to reflect on the. Sorry, it's very hard for me to think while I'm hearing myself from 10 seconds ago, so I'm a bit distracted by that. But what I am very one of the reasons why I'm supporting this investigation is to make sure that we have transparency for the district, for our staff, for Director Coleman, for Lonna Coleman. And that transparency is, I think, important to be able to move forward. I'm concerned to hear about concerns about the scope of the investigation. I don't think that there is an intent to hide anything in particular, but we also do need to define the scope in a reasonable way. And I also don't think it's really, it's not particularly apt to be framing the investigation as performance-related or disciplinary on our board officers. That was never my intent. We would certainly take action if we saw findings that reflected the need for some kind of evaluation of our staff. But the purpose is to investigate the matters that you have raised with us, Mrs. Coleman. We want to get those answers for you and for us. But I am a little unclear on what we might need to do to make sure that we're investigating what answers we need. Director Chan? Yeah.
Can I just say, my memory from our previous discussion on this was that there was no discussion about scope. And that what we had agreed on, and there was definitely no discussion about how the investigator should
I
just.
just want to caution you.
Can I-
If
Okay.
you're talking about closed session, please don't discuss
There
anything
was
that
one
was
statement
discussed
that
in
came out of
closed
closed
session.
session, otherwise there's been no discussion here.
That's exactly what I'm saying, is that I think in closed session, as in the agenda, what we decided to do, as what's stated in the agenda, we decided to appoint a committee to look into this matter. And that was all. And that was all.
I see one more public comment. I do want, right now, we're on the speaking, we're able to ask questions to Lonna Coleman. So if Vice President McIntosh, you have a question for Lonna Coleman, why don't we take that? And then we do have another speaker request for Yvette Rivera. We'll go to discussion after.
No, I don't have a question for Lonna. I did see that John made a request earlier about the sentence that states the investigation was requested by him, Lonna, and the general counsel. And I guess you have to sort of put that in context or take it out of context, because they've been calling for an investigation for a long time, but it was up to the board to make that decision to go forward with an investigation.
Right, we made the
So that's
decision.
just clarity.
Yeah, we have reported out that we've made the decision, and it's stated for clarity that the investigation was requested by each of those three parties.
And if I may clarify one thing, Director Coleman has asked that it be made clear for the record that he has recommended this investigation in his capacity as an individual and a ratepayer, and not in his capacity as a member of the board.
Director Patterson.
Yes, I think that clarity in my mind is having an investigator look at what happened and what EBMUD did. Many of the questions that are raised here are not on the table for change. They're on the table to see if they were right, or whatever we did to track it, to make sure it was covered. I think we're not opening this whole thing up to start all over again. Most of the basic questions have been answered. The state answered. We even been to court and had a judge tell us. So we're not opening this up to decide on whether or not we're gonna go back and do something with the compensation. We're opening it up to see if we track the right thing, if our administrator did things. Some of these things happened, neither Derek nor Cliff were here. They happened under other persons and under the retirement board. So I just want to make sure we're not going out to start all over again.
Thank you, Director Patterson. Why don't we go to the other speaker that's come up in the middle of public comment, Yvette Rivera?
Can I just ask, we have no other questions for Lonna Coleman?
No.
Okay, great.
First of all,
Give me one moment. Okay, 3 minutes start now.
First of all, isn't it a violation of the Brown Act to have this discussion, question, and answer period when it's not on the agenda? That's number one. Number two, Director Linney, you're publicly shaming the Colemans because they're asking for a benefit that happened before PEPRA is really out of line. Because all government employees are overpaid, the public feels, period. It doesn't matter. So that, Lonna is coming, and you're up there smiling while she's trying to get the communications right, is I think, inappropriate. This is a serious matter. This is their life. This is their retirement. East Bay MUD employees, including me, are the highest paying, almost the highest paid employees in the state of California. And Pepper was in existence before 2016, I believe. So they're just asking for the same right that other people that were in the system before get. So I know that when I came to East Bay MUD, I was told I would have reciprocity, and that was not true. But the impact on my life was minuscule in comparison to the Colemans. And other people have said the same thing to me at East Bay MUD about how they were given misinformation about retirement. So I hope that this matter gets investigated completely and that it says that the general manager and general counsel are going to, that's what I understood from the recording, that they're going to be the subject of investigation when Lonna Coleman has come to this board and given a long list of people that were involved with what they feel were wrongdoings. That's all I have. I yield.
Thank you. I don't see any other public comment.
Just addressing the Brown Act issue, this is an agendized item, so.
Yeah,
it's open for discussion.
we do have to take caution before we come to a collective consensus before the public comment has completed. But I think most of what we were doing was trying to work with members of the public on questions, and we have not come to that consensus on the actual agenda item yet. Director Coleman? Okay, I'll call on you next. Will you unmute, Director Coleman?
Unmuting myself. Thank you. I'm John Coleman, speaking as a private citizen, as I did 2 weeks ago, both before closed session and open session. Where I had concern, and I let Derek know, was by using the word requested by Director Coleman. He knows, and I know, that under FPPC guidelines and our own internal conflict of interest, that putting me as a director in this capacity opens up the opportunity, let's say there is a settlement, that it can be thrown out in court. And I find that egregious. Derek said he's doing it because of my title. I don't give a darn about my title. I don't want to have an action that was supposed to mean a good thing, questionable, to be listed on a document. And this is where I had great concerns, listed on the BD1. The other thing is what has been raised by my wife and now some others. It's not the going back on the case at all. It's the actions that led to misinformation and inaction by result of staff. And there are more than 2 people, I know that, but we all know that. It's not going back on the case at all. It's not related to the case at all. It's going back to some of the actions that precipitated in the portion of going forward. And that needs to be kept in mind of everybody. You know, had certain things not happened, we may not be sitting here today talking about it. And that's what needs to be clarified and corrected. If not for me, damn it, for any other future employee that is faced with a similar situation. You know, you're told something, you're told it's not going to happen later in life or whatever, but that's not appropriate for any employee of this district. They should never, ever, ever have to go through what is going on right now. And that's, again, it's incorrect, it's wrong, and that's where it needs fixing. Again, it's not linked to the past case at all. In fact, with Lonna's appeal, I'm not even on it. So I don't even know who her attorney is for that matter. But it's the language on using Director Coleman is an opportunity for some at the district perhaps to say if there is any settlement that he is null and void because of the FPPC guidelines and our own internal conflict of interest. So I would really like it to be also fixed where it says the investigation has been requested by Director Coleman, has been requested by John Coleman, for the record. That's what needs to be done. And that covers what I wanted to say. Thank you.
That's been noted. Thank you. Vice President McIntosh.
So I actually agree with John. So two things. It was requested by John Coleman not as a director of East Bay MUD. So I think that should be corrected. I absolutely agree, John. And then my motion is to appoint an ad hoc committee consisting of Doug Lenny, April Chan, and Andy Katz to coordinate the Board of Directors' investigation of claims asserted by Lonna Coleman. That's my motion.
I'll second your motion.
Moved and seconded. Are there any other comments or discussion? Roll call. And actually, before, do we have any other comments by council before we take a vote?
No, I'll just note that the minutes of the last meeting reflect the fact that John recommended or requested this investigation in his personal capacity. and I
Yes,
assume
not as
the minutes-
director.
Yes, not as director, and I assume the minutes of this meeting will also reflect that.
Yes.
I'm sorry, for a point of clarification, Lisa, I just want to be sure about the language. The language is just, the language you stated for the motion is just around the appointment, right?
Yeah.
To appoint these three people, okay.
Yeah, to coordinate the Board of Directors' investigation.
Okay.
For the, yes, Ben.
And it's per the title on the action.
For the title.
Appoint an ad hoc committee to coordinate the Board of Directors' investigation of claims asserted by Lonna Coleman.
I understand, thank you.
Madam Secretary.
We have one hand for public comment.
Okay.
We have Lonna Coleman again for public comment, and then go ahead.
I will recognize that comment.
Okay. Lonna Coleman, you should be able to unmute your mic.
I could not hear the names of, that Lisa said, so I don't know if she was complying and taking into account those that have shown their predisposition against me.
Can you hear me now, Lonna?
Yes, Lisa, thank you.
Doug Lenny, April Chan, and Andy Katz.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
I wanted to ask council just to comment about if any advice has been given about whether John Coleman may vote on the matter as a director, or if he should not.
I recuse myself.
Okay, yeah, just wanted to be clear on that because you've been participating in the meeting, and I just wanted to get that clear.
Yeah. Director Coleman's been participating in this discussion in his personal capacity, but he knows that he needs to recuse himself from an actual vote.
Okay, all right. Thanks for that clarification. And we're ready for a roll call vote.
Okay. Director Chan,
Yes.
Director Lenny,
Yes.
Director McIntosh,
Yes.
Director Patterson,
Yes,
President Katz.
Yes. We move to the general manager's report, and we have a very exciting presentation on the customer opinion survey.
Yes, so, periodically, as you're aware, we do conduct a customer opinion survey to understand how our customers perceive us and provide us actionable data. The last time we did a survey was in 2019. This year, we brought in Probalski Research, assisted with us on the survey, and Kelly Zito is here to introduce the item.
Great. Is this the correct mic that's on? This one?
It is.
Okay, great. Thank you, Clifford. Good afternoon, President Katz and members of the board. To tee this up, I just wanted to refresh your memory that, as part of our strategic communications plan that was presented last year, one of our main goals was to increase awareness of the district's work supporting public health and the environment in our community. One step toward that, of course, is good research to understand kind of the baseline understanding that folks have of the district so that we might more effectively engage with the public. So this spring, Probalski Research conducted a customer opinion survey of about 1,200 folks residing in our service area. And so he is here today, Adam Probalski is here today to present the key findings, the data, and some recommendations. And I'll just say that this is not Adam's first time, obviously, presenting such an item. He has done over 100 similar customer opinion surveys and other research for water agencies across California, including Met, Valley Water, Contra Costa Water, Marin, and Aqua as well. So just one other note, in an effort to further our work on diversity, equity, and inclusion, we did make a methodology change this year, and that was to include folks who reside within our service area, not just folks that we have a bill-paying relationship with. So that was a major change from the previous surveys that we had done starting in the early 2000s. So with that, I'll turn it over to Adam, who's here.
Thank you, Kelly. Directors, thanks for allowing me to present today. I'm going to move somewhat quickly, barring questions, because we've got a lot of material to get through, and this is the short presentation. There's hundreds of pages behind this that we can certainly get into at another time. So the survey itself, let's see if I can, there we go, is a robust survey. To give you context, we talked to 1,200 residents in the service territory, our service area. Just to give you some context, our typical statewide survey has 900 or so respondents. So having 1,200 within East Bay MUD is very robust. We also did things like make it available in not only English, but also Spanish and Chinese. We had participation by about 5% in Spanish and 1% in Chinese. Doesn't mean they don't speak one of the other languages. It just means what they prefer. It's a very reflective survey. People had the opportunity to talk to us in the mode they preferred. So some people on the phone, including landlines, there's a few of those still around, but mostly mobile phones if they talk to us on the phone. But then the vast majority of respondents were online. It's just kind of how we all communicate these days. Email or text message is how they came on board. Just to give you a sense of what your residents of your service area look like, this is them by gender, by age, by ethnicity, all those different factors, length of residence, people have lived here for a long time, and then also by things like the number of people in a household, whether they have a disability. We used a calculation provided by staff to identify whether they were eligible under your guidelines for assistance, things like that. So this is the your residence. Just to give you some perspective, our goal was to match the census of your service area, and the darker lines are on top are what we got, and the bottom line, the bluer ones are census data. So you can see we aligned very, very closely with the census data to make sure we were fully representative of the community that you serve. Moving to some differences from 2019, we aim to have this survey from 2023 be a benchmark going forward. We did some things that were, let's say we call it modernize the survey. 2019 data was great. 2023 data is maybe a little bit more reflective because we did that broader perspective, not just customers proper, but people who live within the service territory. Quite frankly, they're still users of your product. They're just not necessarily always rate payers proper. So we did things like broader universe of residents, and then do other things like make sure we reached out to them in all those different modes. And we also changed some of the questions to make it more modernized as well. So comparisons to old data, not bad, but comparisons to new data going forward is going to be even more appropriate. So awareness and approval. First, then who you are. And we gave them the chance to open-end tell us who provides tap water to their home. And the vast majority of people can name you or some approximation of you. And so that should be encouraging. They know who you are and that you're serving them. They also have some other, odd ideas, a few people do, but for the most part, they know who you are. Here is the data of whether they've heard anything about East Bay MUD in recent times, and lately. We didn't put a time frame on it. You can see over a third, 37%, have heard of something about you recently. Most haven't, and that's okay, and I'll get more into why that is in a minute. We do have some differences here from the past years, a little bit higher recognition, having heard something about you. Not that surprising. We're coming off of drought conservation conversations, things like that. And the numbers were a little bit different from the previous year. But bottom line is you have a pretty good sense of people having experienced or seeing something from you. We do provide some data here based on renters versus owners, and you can kind of see that owners have a bigger perspective of having heard something from you. And that's not surprising. More owners are more likely to be actual ratepayers proper and get more communications from you, and we can talk more about that shortly. Next, how would you rate the job East Bay MUD is doing? So this is where I explain 81% is phenomenal. This is not an academic exercise. We're not trying to get A's and B's here. We're Americans. We don't agree on anything. If 81% of us agree on something, it's amazing. So also the differential here between the poor and very poor and the excellent and good is dramatic. You always, I presume, going to want to aim to figure out how to make these folks happy and know how great you are. But I think it's unlikely that you're going to get that final 5 or 6% to love you. Also unsure, Probalski, why didn't you figure out what they really thought? What did you do wrong there? And here's the answer is, this is about context. Your ratepayer or your ratepayers and your residents, they go to school, they go to work, they go to soccer, they save up to go to dinner once a month. They are not thinking about you. I'm sorry to tell you that. It's that you're not top of mind. And so there's a big group of people who don't know, but it's not as big as you would necessarily think. Much higher approval going forward from 2019 to this year. Really strong numbers. And strong numbers across the board for renters and owners and all demographics, quite frankly. All right, moving through to we provided a list of the various services that you offer, essentially, and we asked them, what are you personally satisfied with? Let me say this. Managing finances doesn't mean that the bottom of the list doesn't mean that they're not really satisfied necessarily with these things. They just don't have familiarity. They're, again, context-wise. What they really appreciate here is the high quality of drinking water that you provide. And quite frankly, I think that's probably top of your charter, top of what you're supposed to be doing, so I think it's a great place to be. All of these things are, I think, relatively important to you as directors and to your staff, but this is really where you're shining and you're doing well with it. They also have a high appreciation for things like encouraging conservation and making sure you have water during drought seasons and things like that. So I wouldn't dismiss any of these or make you feel like they don't think you're doing a good job there. It's just this is what they're thinking about when they think about you. Moving to, do you make smart decisions about, do they trust you to make smart decisions about water and sewer? 64% say yes. Big differential, 4-1 here from the no side, and a lot of people saying they're unsure. They don't have to trust you. You're a government agency, they're residents, the trust doesn't have to be there, but it is. It's pretty significant. I suspect you want to see a trend line. This is the first time we're asking this question. I suspect you want to see an upward trend, and I suspect you can get there over the course of time. So strong numbers. Priorities. We ask them what's important to them when it comes to personally important to them, the list of things that you might be promoting of late. Well, providing safe tap water is their number one priority. Preparing for droughts, they think that's pretty high. As you can see, none of these numbers are low. Clearly, getting safe water is their highest, but even down here, innovative and planning for the future is still pretty big at 49%. So the point here is you don't get to dismiss any of these things. All these things are a part of your conversation when talking to the public, but up here is where you're really going to shine. And then we ask about projects and initiatives, specifically by the district. And they care, and again, these were select all that can apply, so nothing really dropped off significantly. Upgrading aging infrastructure is what they really care about in the priority, but right up there is preparing for droughts and preparing for impacts of earthquakes and reducing pollution. all those things are priorities. So for your communications and outreach staff, they get to talk about all these things. You have an abundance of riches when it comes to the great things you're doing on all these subjects. And then we have a bunch of questions that we are illustrating here in one slide. And we ask them if it makes you more favorable or less favorable, somewhat or more, knowing that the district does all these things. And so these are things that you do, like being innovative in your technology implementation, preparing for earthquakes, environmental protection, all these things are positive. So again, this abundance of messaging that as you talk to the public about, the assistance programs that you have and the fact that you're a not-for-profit public agency, if you're giving a speech or the general manager is giving a presentation to a club in the community, all these things are fair game and people are going to really resonate and hold on to them. Next up, water use. First bit of news that maybe you don't love. So the bottom line is most people think they're using 20 gallons of water per day per person or less. That is not accurate accurate reflection of reality. If you can see, that is off from previous years where in 2019 they were assuming it's about 100 gallons a day. This becomes a challenge for you to possibly overcome when you're talking about conservation and talking about giving people context for what it is they really do. And this is something we'll work closely with staff on to help understand the nuances of demographics on these things.
Do you think there was any confusion? I saw that those numbers between indoor water use and total water use and...
So we did, we talked about, in this case, indoor only.
Yeah.
That was the question. And the answer is, as you know, Director, is that most people have an expectation that they use more water indoors than they do outside. And so that compounds these numbers to make them even worse, because it's just not a reflection of reality in any case. So we ask them how often do they get a bill, if they know how often. The plurality of people say every other month, so they know the construct of your billing. But if you look and you see, you've got a whole bunch of people that think they get it monthly, which means they think their bill is a whole lot bigger than it is or costs more. You've got some people say quarterly and some people who say unsure. Keep in mind that I may not be paying the bill in my household. It may be my spouse. So I think that's a consideration for the unsure. But bottom line is you're in a good place, probably want to get better at explaining the dynamic of how often you bill. We ask a question for them to agree or disagree. Do they have a good value? Are they satisfied with the cost, quite frankly, compared to things like cable and energy and things like that, other utility bills? And they say yes. Almost 2/3, 66% say they agree that they're satisfied with the cost in relationship to those other things. So that's a good place to be if you're in a place where you need to raise rates. Which of the following describes how you feel about the rates? So most people here, and this is a split sample question I'll explain in a minute, most people say their bill's about right. And some people even say that they think it's lower than they expect it to be. And then you've got 9% who say it's too high. So I think the key here is we split this sample. We did half the questions based upon this, or the respondents based on this question. For the next half, we asked put a little qualifier in there. We said the average cost of water is 1 penny per gallon. So the just about right numbers are a little bit less than they were when we didn't put that qualifier. But the lower than I expect shoots up to 7%. So what this says to us is when you give context to what water really costs on a per gallon basis, you get a better reaction, an idea from customers that, wow, I'm probably paying not as much as I expected or less than I necessarily should. So that may be a communications consideration for how staff does communications in the future on rates. Customer service. A lot of data in this chart. You've got 2023 in the darker green versus 2019. Bottom line, it shows really positive numbers. Among the people who had contact with customer service there on the left there, 77% say that they've got a positive interaction. You've got 77% saying positive interaction. And then among the people there who had contact with your field staff, 84% say excellent or good. So really, really positive numbers across the board. And then if they did interact with staff, field staff, in the last 12 months, we've got this here, you illustrated here, 88%. And that's among that sliver, because only 12% had any real interaction. And then in the having construction in your neighborhood, 30% feel like they had construction in their neighborhood. That may not be an accurate reflection. It may just feel that way to people. But a big chunk of your residents feel like they've had construction in their neighborhood. And among those folks who feel like they did, that 30%, 59% say they have a very positive relationship to the outreach from the communication from that project. 25% say they were unhappy with that and some who are unsure. So that differential, again, 2 to 1, so really positive. But is this a place for potential improvement? Sure. You'll see later the difficulty in reaching out to people and communicating with them is a very disparate environment for communication. So it's not going to be so easy, but we'll talk more about that. Communication preferences. Would you want to attend a community meeting? And here it is, no. They don't want to attend a community meeting. It doesn't mean you don't have them, but it just means that they probably don't want to show up to your meeting. And so that's one of the challenges in communicating the things that are going to be happening when a construction project or some kind of closure. And then we asked them, well, if we were going to have a meeting, how would you want it to happen? Well, most of them say virtually. You have some in person, some say it makes no difference, but the majority say virtually. So that may be a staff or policy decision to kind of move in that direction. They say evening time, but they also say other times as well. So you may start to build a picture of how you want to do that outreach on projects. And then we bring it back home and we say, knowing what you know now, how would you rate the job East Bay MUD is doing? So we've told them a lot of information about the agency. The intention wasn't to inform, but now that we had a conversation with them, what is their impression? Well, we have a shoot up here in excellent and good at 90% to give you a really positive rating. And as I said before, the folks that don't like what you're doing really don't change. They're really not impacted by anything we had to say, and you've got a whole lot of fewer people who are unsure. So really positive numbers, and you can see similar numbers from renters and owners. Really positive numbers come from these from that conversation we just had with them throughout the survey. Key findings, I'll just kind of reiterate, is you've got trust in the agency. You've got some things that we didn't kind of get to here, but we tested some of those. We did briefly some of those messages, like being innovative and preparing for earthquakes, and the environmental protection work you do, the work you do for trails and open space and watershed, and those are things that are physical connections with your constituents. Those are the things you're going to talk about because that's what really brings them in and makes them broadly supportive. And then the fact that they have a high appreciation for your customer service and your field staff, and all these other things, the fact that you need to maybe readjust how people feel about what amount of water they use, that's a big education process. And the fact that you have low appreciation for in-person meetings, so maybe you want to adjust that process. There's some findings here that really may impact how you do your outreach and what you talk about. Specific recommendations, you're going to talk about the things that we've identified as being high on their priority list, like innovation and preparation for earthquakes and environmental protection. The fact that not everybody understands the scope of what you do, so you might want to broaden that conversation with them. And the fact that people can't estimate how much water they use, that's a challenge you may want to address. As well as communications. In our communications questions, nothing stands out. Email to some degree more than other things, but it's so disparate. We're in this very disparate environment where some people are getting all their information from Facebook and others from TikTok and others from the evening news. And so you really don't get to choose. You have to be very broad in your communication outreach efforts. Email may be a bigger factor going forward, but beyond that, it's very much going to be broad. I know that was a massive amount of data, and like I said, there's hundreds of more pages. We're happy to get into it. I'm also happy to answer questions.
Interesting.
Seems like our customers still like us a lot, which is, we shouldn't take that for granted, but something we need to keep working on.
I am really interested in the data that we can glean from the first time including people who are not customers of record, largely, not entirely divided on renter and homeowner. It's not a perfect distinction, but it's a strong characteristic of the different groups. And definitely you identify one of the most stark answers for how they differ in terms of just their knowledge about us at all. So and that translates to a little bit of a gap in approval, still fairly high for people who don't get any direct communications from us. Was there any other information in terms of the priorities of those groups, and if those priorities differed at all? We just have aggregated lists for the things around priorities. It would be hard, I'm not sure if we asked them about the bill because they don't pay direct bills, so I don't know if they could have given us an informed answer. And construction. Did we get any other information that would help us learn about that particular group in our first time, gathering data with them?
Yes, so in the broader report, there are cross-tabulated results for gender, age, ethnicity, education, income, what do they own, and then the type of home they own, so single family, condo, mobile home, all those different or they rent. Also by geography, and some of those geographies get very small, and including by community, by city, and then by county, by incorporated, unincorporated, east of hills, west of hills. So the answer is yes, Director. In all those different possible ways, the data is broken down by ward and things like that, and by mode. The truth is, if there wasn't something in broad perspective that stood out that said, wow, I can't believe this particular demographic is so off from the others. There are definitely nuances to it that I think in working with staff, we will inform, our data will inform some of the nuance to that outreach. But for the most part, it was, people were largely aligned. There wasn't some big data difference based upon demographic.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's it's always good news to hear that we have fewer disparities than, but I think if there were, I'd want to be attentive to them. One that keeps me up late at night is the question that we ask that I don't see in the slides here, that samples people's self-assessment about whether they're prepared with emergency water during an earthquake aftermath.
Yeah.
And I do wonder if we have a disparity between the two groups. Certainly, when we've asked the question before, we reveal that we're woefully unprepared as a community.
Yeah.
I don't have that statistic offhand. I'm not sure if we've gotten the written report with the crosstabs yet. But do you know offhand what those numbers were?
I don't have it in front. I have it here, but I don't have the question in front of me right now. So I will, through staff, get that back to you and make a note as to whether there's any disparity there. Mm-hmm. Yes, the full report, which I'm sure staff will make available to you, is, like I said, hundreds of pages. One cool thing about it, it has the open-ended responses, which you can read through with an overlay of the demographics. So you can get an experience of, or an understanding of the experience of the individual who said the words they said, and get a sense of their experience in the world. So
great. Yeah, I'll look forward to reading that with the crosstabs. So thank you for your report. Director Linney?
You do have a crosstab for people who actually pay a bill, who are actually a customer, who don't, or?
So in the report that's already been delivered, there are renters and there are owners, which is, as Director Katz explained, is a proxy perhaps for, but not a true alignment with whether they're a bill payer. We did ask a question in the survey whether they pay a bill or someone else in their household, or someone separately, like a homeowner association or an apartment owner or an owner.
Oh, okay.
So we can create that crosstab largely, and we will do that and get that back to staff.
Yeah, because I'd be interested, for instance, on your bill. The question was, is your bill too high? Is it just about right? Well, if they don't pay a bill, that's kind of an interesting question, and I certainly would be interested in the crosstabs on that to see if the people who say my bill is too high are all the people who pay the bill, and the bill who say it's about right, or people don't pay a bill at all. So that might,
very good point.
Skew our results or how we interpret them.
Okay, looks like those are all the comments from the board. Are there any public comments?
And maybe as far as the report itself, I can provide the report to you electronically. It's with all the crosstabs. I understand it's about 1,200 pages. I think the front end without the crosstabs is about 200 pages. So I'd prefer, if you're interested, let me know and I'll send it to you electronically rather than printing out that number of pages.
Okay, yeah, we have one member of the public here for public comment.
Okay. I'll stand.
Yvette Rivera.
Thank you. If I wanted to find out how much that survey cost, would I just ask the board here, or would I get that through a Public Records Act request? That's a procedural question.
I think that shouldn't be too hard to get the information of, in lieu of a Public Records Act request, General Manager.
Yeah, I don't know. Kelly, I don't know if you can answer. I mean, did we bring this item to the board for consideration?
I just want to know how much it costs to have this survey done.
No, I understand.
I can just
Kelly
email.
may have an answer.
Okay.
Just a moment.
Yes, so the survey, I think, was right around $60,000 to conduct, yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, and that's actually fairly slower than the pace of inflation for what we spent on this survey in the past.
$60,000 is a lot of money. And, we're pretty fortunate that East Bay Mud is monopoly. I mean, where else are people going to go get water? They're going to be happy getting on water. And in terms of the section on customer service, I really hope that board members take a really good look at that part, because the heart and arteries of East Bay Mud are the employees. And yes, of course, water, sewage, the buildings, water treatment plants, the pumping plants, we have employees that know that we service the customer, not inanimate objects. I want to just end by saying it would be great if the board took a look at that data to see how much they should value that segment of East Bay Mud, because we have a winners group report that tells everybody what some of the solutions are. And I know the unions come here often to tell this board, please stop contracting out our jobs. But the least that should happen when you look at this report is see how important the employees are that make you and this agency look as good as it is in this paper. Thank you, I yield.
On that note, the thing that I look forward to is seeing how customers are really responding to the district through our employees, and especially customer service at the call center has always received really good reviews, and that seems to be confirmed when we do the KPI evaluations to see how short our pickup times are and how low our call abandonment times are. Those metrics really seem to correlate with the review that we get in terms of how customers respond on this periodic survey that we do. I'm not surprised that the perception is lower related to construction in the neighborhood. I don't think anybody really enjoys construction in the neighborhood, and there is some inevitability of blaming the messenger. So I don't remember if we've had this question in the past and how it tracks with previous years. But it's important to ask to see, what can we do better about outreach? And, but I'm not disappointed that it's a different, band of number compared to the call center.
Yeah, I don't believe we've asked that question in the past, but maybe Kelly, you can confirm that, or?
So I believe that question may have been asked some time ago. I mean, maybe in the early 2000s when we first started the survey. But then I think as time went on, I think it hadn't been. So we wanted to make sure we added it back in this time around.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any impressions about whether you feel like the survey is, the question is phrased in a way that really gets I mean, we're asking really specifically about the communication. We're, I think, doing the best we can to try to isolate the disappointment from my water was out for a day, you know, some sort of incident like that, and the communication about the construction in the neighborhood. There's a lot of different types of things. It could be an emergency main break that the disruption may have made it very difficult for us to have orderly communication, very much in contrast to a planned event where we're doing a door knocking. So what do you think about what information we got from that?
Yeah, so it is true, we did not distinguish between, communication around a planned, event or project and say like a main break at 2 a.m. So people just could kind of lump those things together and maybe think that, an outage, emergency and planned are sort of similar and maybe, obviously for an emergency, you wouldn't have received any notice beforehand. So it's all lumped together in that we didn't get down to that granularity in that question, but it could be, an area. I think it does inform outreach for us in the sense of educating people more about main breaks themselves, like the anatomy of a main break, how it happens, what we do, the crews that come out at 2 a.m. to restore your water. That could be an opportunity to educate and inform a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm not criticizing the decision to only add one more question because the survey is probably already, longer than it's supposed to be. So I just interested in how effective it was to help you learn more about how to communicate and to see what we might want to do in the future. Director Patterson, do I see your interest?
No, I just wanted to say, over the years, I've seen the perception as it relates to EBMUD and the people we serve. When I came aboard, the issue was big with energy and water. And PG&E wasn't thought of too well then, and they got worse in time. The fires didn't help them at all. In our particular case, both the environmental concerns that we had and keeping the costs low and keeping the service adequate, over the years, we've always enjoyed a positive position with people. I think this is a good survey. I think it does reflect where we are now. Can we add things that make it better? Yes. But this is a good survey, and this is a good result. And I just wanted to chime in to say that because I've seen the other side of the district. Up country, they used to shoot at our trucks, and we went up and made friends. We discovered how we could contract some of our services out and bring people in who could have a better living wage in the area and join together in the worst of times when PG&E picked a fight with us. Well, we actually won that fight because they either had to surrender to us all of the properties and everything they had going on up there because they had to do that. We're a nonprofit. I don't know if anybody knows that. But we don't have anybody to go to send any money to. Our ratepayers reap the results of our fine-tuned financing and expending of the monies that come through in the best interest of everybody that we serve. And so I want to just keep reiterating that. This is our history, and we're in our 100th year. Everybody ought to know that we have 100 years of progress, and right now we're on the crest of making some things that gotta be done right, and we have addressed that issue. And we've done it without having to charge an arm and a leg to the people that we represent. And so I just want to congratulate you on the survey, and we need to keep doing that. We need to keep in touch. You know, I go back to when Snowflake to the Bay. I went into public schools. I went into places where the children learned about water. And they carried the message home to the parent. And the parent got interested in what they learned in the classroom. We are an incredible body. And our services, I believe, the people really like, and they've responded to you. So you keep doing the surveys, but more importantly, keep doing the work of the people and keep them involved in the process, and you will get what you look for. That's my 2 cents worth.
Thank you. Looks like those are all the comments we have on the survey. We'll go, okay.
I just have a quick comment. Do the tabs, can they be reflected by ward on the responses?
Adam is saying yes.
Okay, thank you.
Great. So we'll go back to the general manager for notes on our Speakers Bureau.
Yes, just at your places is the Speakers Bureau. Let me know if you have any comments or questions, and that's the end of my report.
Thank you. We will now move to reports and director comments.
I'm sorry, President Katz, do we want to address item 1, the
Yes.
minutes? I said,
Madam Secretary, would you like to report on your investigation?
yes, I would like to ask the board to defer the minutes to September 12th so that Director Chan and I can review her comments and update the minutes accordingly.
Okay. If that's agreeable to everybody, all right, we will
Okay.
have that on our September agenda. All right, the minutes from the August 8th Planning Committee were included in the agenda materials. We understand that the Finance Administration Committee did not convene a meeting. Director Patterson, feel free to share anything about the briefing in director comments. Please submit items for future consideration to the general manager. And thank you if you have already submitted your written comments to the secretary. Are there any verbal director comments or reports?
I have comments. I wanted to make follow-up comments on my remarks from last week, from 2 weeks ago, which were about the audit that was done by our own internal auditors on the transfer of funds between projects. It was an immense amount. It was $279 million that was transferred without board authorization. So this is now public knowledge. And so we also, I don't know if people are aware, but part of the funds for that project was federal monies. And part of it was appropriations monies. So I don't know if anyone else here has worked on federal appropriations. I have. And I think what needs to be on the agenda for the Finance Committee is an audit, a more in-depth audit for this particular project. Because I think it's smart for us to do it before the federal government decides to do it. I'm sure we have nothing to hide. So I think that type of audit is appropriate.
I would agree with April on that.
So as far as bringing this to a discussion, I was planning to bring this back to the board and have a discussion when we go through our next budget discussion. I think to be clear as far as how and what Barry's audit discussed, the board approves the budget that includes appropriations. The board approves all the contracts that are awarded for various projects. And to manage paying for those projects, we move appropriations where sometimes our estimate is low versus what the bids, sometimes are high, and so we move money around. And so part of the visibility for the board that we're talking about, there's an annual report that's prepared by the finance department that talks about here's how we move around appropriations between the awards. I think it'd be a good idea to share that with the board members so they can see, this is how we take our appropriations, which again, the board approves, to pay for the capital projects, which the board approves. But, the mechanics behind how that money is moved isn't as obvious to the board. And this is just what we do as staff, and how budgets are managed. No different than how you would manage your personal budget when you get an estimate, say, for a home remodel, and you have an estimate for something else. Some come in high, some come in low. You just have to move money around. We just want to make sure that's very transparent to the board. As far as, again, bringing it to the board for discussion, I plan to bring that as we get into the next budget discussion, because this, among other things, we're looking at on how we can improve on, and I want to make sure that we present, all the changes that we're proposing to make, and not just this particular item.
Well, if this was just, our issue, I might agree with that, but the fact of the matter is that there's federal money involved here. And the allegations in the report are pretty serious. It's not like moving money around for a household project. This is an extraordinary amount of money. This is $280 million.
We're currently in director comments and.
And so I'm asking for it to be on the agenda.
Director Chan, I thank you for making the comment. It does sound like that we're due for the internal auditor's quarterly report at the next meeting. This may fit into that. It may fit into a related conversation that, in addition to that too. So I think it's good to get the staff aware of the interest so that it can be on the next.
Is it more appropriate for it to be on the Finance Committee agenda or on the larger agenda, or the agenda for the larger group?
I'm interested in the Finance Committee reviewing it first, and then we can.
So my request, to be perfectly clear, is that it is on the next agenda for the Finance Committee meeting, which is in a month. And my request is for us to, the item to be to hire a forensic auditor for this project. Just to be 100% clear, that is what I'm asking for.
A request for an audit of the Upper San Leandro Water Treatment Plant project?
A forensic audit.
A forensic audit. Okay.
What's the difference between a forensic audit and an audit?
So what was done was just, so it was just like the first phase, it was just like a summary. So a forensic audit is when they would go in deeper and in detail.
So again, because this is not quite agendized as.
I'm just asking, I can ask for things to be on the schedule, so I'm asking that to be on the schedule.
Understood.
Yes.
Any other director comments?
And that audit that you're requesting will be part of the discussion at the Finance Committee meeting?
That's what I'm asking for it to be on the agenda for the Finance Committee.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, if the board, if the committee recommends further board review, we'll look forward to that report from the committee.
Adjourned.
Seeing no other director comments, Director Patterson.
One thing I wanted to say, over the years, my experience in coming to EBMUD, I came off experiences in civil rights as the last place I was vested before I came in here. During that time, I went to become the first African-American to be foreman of Alameda County Grand Jury. And I learned a lot of things about the system and how to get answers. And what I wanted to say is that a lot of expressions, sometimes our feelings get caught up in it. And when we talk about exceptions, one of the first things I learned was 2 wrongs don't make a right. Exceptions are not the rule of law. The rule of law is the things that work best for everybody. And that's what judgment brings you. And I just want to express that to say a lot of dialogue goes on. Downgrading the district is not the answer. Upgrading the district is the answer. And more people need to be positive than negative, because the negativity won't take you anywhere. That's my comments I want to make.
Thank you. All right, I think we stand in adjournment. The next regular meeting of the EBMUD Board of Directors.
I'm sorry, President Katz, I have one hand, it went down, okay, it was by accident.
Okay, the next regular meeting of the Board of Directors will be held on Tuesday, September 12th at 1:15 PM. This meeting is now adjourned.